Alright, hello everybody. This is Tanner Goncer, and this is my submission for the homework number 2 tutorial on how I did it. I'm using RShiny and shinyapps.io to deploy this web application. And I'll start with the data here. This is how it comes out in raw form. I immediately noticed that based on the figure that the professor provided us, all we need to do was take these columns right here. And one thing you'll notice is that they are, the year starts at 2014 and it goes in descending order essentially. So what I did was I put it in ascending order, sorted it out, and that is the data set that I'm working with. So just very minimal pre-processing. I just copy and pasted the columns that I wish to have, and I put it in a separate Excel file. And you can see this is my R directory. I have a couple other apps here that I've worked with before, just for practice, nothing really serious. And you can see it's inside my homework 2 directory. And I have RS Connect, which is RStudio Connect, and that is one of the packages that I use to connect my application to my my home page, which you can see here on shinyapps.io. So we'll revisit this in a little bit, but I'll come back to that. But just starting with the code and what it's intended to do. This is actually the first version that I did, and you can see it's not very annotated because I have another version, another implementation, but I just wanted to show you guys this is what I first started with. The way that this works is you call your libraries that you need. Obviously, we're going to call it Shiny. Then I decided to call Plotly because this is what I use to plot the data. And I have a path to that data. And from here, you can see the column names. I take a column list, and basically what this does is I exclude year because that's the first column here. So I set this column list to be equal to column names of FIFA except year, which you can do by doing -1. So you take all the rows, but you do except -1. And then we go ahead and we take the UI setup. So you have two components here. You have a UI and you have a server. And before I go into explain all this, let me just show you what this produced for me, and then I'll go through and explain my code, which is annotated on my other version, which I'll copy and paste here in a second. So what this produced for me was not what I wanted. I did get the drop-down menu. I did get it to change how I wanted to. And I had some nice little rotation on the axes. But this is not what I wanted. And this Plotly actually has some features here that it comes with. You can toggle spike lines, some interesting, so you could hover over the data points, but it doesn't change color. You can also do something like zoom in. If you have really big data, right? You can zoom in and then double click out to zoom. So this is what I started with, and that was not what I wanted. So let me show you what I ended up with and why I chose it. Starting from the top, instead of Plotly, we're using HighChart, and this took a very long time to find out, but I was able to call this package, and essentially what it does is it allows you to highlight. It has a hover component. When you mouse over a certain element in the visual, it allows you to hover it and get some data from it, and also it highlights it. So that's what I was looking for. It took me so long to find that, but I was finally able to find it. So starting from the top, the only 3 packages I need from the library are Shiny, HighChart, and ReadExcel. So starting off, I call that data, and I have FIFA. And at the time when I wrote this, why you don't see the long path here is because I already had set up my work directory to be inside this file path right here. So I was able to just call FIFA.xlxx. using read Excel. So that part's pretty straightforward. Next, I explain once again how we are taking away the year column, and I just want to use that as a static x-axis. Everything that's included in this column list is the match, attendance, teams, and goals. And this is what we use later to make this the column drop-down menu, which is what the user interfaces with. So now we can get more into what RShiny is and how it works. You have two components, like I was saying before, a UI and a server. Fluid page, I believe most of them start like this. I'm not too sure about all the different layouts, but this is the UI. It used to be that you have to have two separate files. You can see up here I have app.r. I used to have two separate files for R. You used to have a UI file and a server file, but now they've made it so you can just make one file and define both within this one file and just call it app.r. So the UI is the user interface. This is where you set up the layout for the user to interface with your graphics and your visuals. So here I am defining the UI for the FIFA application. We give it a title panel. This will appear at the top, and this is very much like HTML, like we did in the homework 1, except without the div tags, right? So here I set up the title panel, and then here's the first element that I'm defining. This is how you set up a drop-down menu in RShiny. It's called Select Input. Input ID is where you define the variable name of the slider drop-down bar. You label it with whatever you want. For the figure example, we just had plot, so you would say plot to choose plot the user's choice of the column list, which is defined here. Choices equals column list, which is up here, and selected just gives you the default starting point for what it's going to start on. So I just put teams. Next, I'm defining the HighChart output component, which this is the graphical element that I was describing before, and this allows you to highlight when you mouse over certain elements of your chart. So I call this one plot, and just keep in mind var, and plot, we will call these two later when we're rendering these elements in the server function. So now to the server function. We define the logic for the rendering output of the chart. And yes, there will be logic in here with these if statements. So I'm calling the HighChart output element from above. Output $plot. That calls the element. And what do we want to do with it? We want to render it. So you render HighChart, and then you create a little variable here that we'll call at the very end HighChart. So this is a style element for HighChart, and this is how you style it. And it's just a percentage and greater than sign, or percentage, whatever you want to call that. So first of all, I start styling this element. So first thing I do is I want to create the x-axis to be FIFA equals year. And that's it. So that's going to be static throughout the whole thing. Then the next part, I declare it to be a column chart or a bar chart, as we'd more commonly know of that. And here's the part that took me so long to find. This line right here, this one simple line, is a couple levels deep. This is how you call it. So you go into plot options, and then you go into series, because that is essentially how you define. You can have multiple series, like think of a line chart with of stocks, like multiple stocks. Here we only have one series we're showing at a time, but you go into series, states, And then hover is a state of the user with the mouse when they hover over an element. Of course, we want to enable that as true. Give it some line width, just chose 10. And here I chose the color to be red. The default color is blue, so I make it red to starkly contrast with that. So this one line is setting up the chart elements to allow me to highlight any element and have it turn red. So next part is the logic part. So here all I'm saying in this quadruple if statement is, and there's 4 because there's 4 variables, I say if the input var, which we see up here, if that is chosen to be teams, then we will add the series. And notice we haven't done this command at all until now. We say HighChart.add series, name equal teams, from the data FIFA teams. And we do this for all 4 variables. It's the same structure, all inside this if block right here. Finally, we finish with HighChart and we call it. And then finally, to run the application, all you have to do is put Shiny app, UI, and server. So I can run this app right here for you, and here's what it looks like. It automatically scales. This is a nice part of RShiny. It's very, very friendly in that sense that you don't really have to know any HTML or any extra things. So here's our title. Here's the plot drop down menu. So let's go ahead and change it to matches. One thing you'll also notice, that gap between 1938 and 1950, that's no longer there. In the first chart, there was a gap. Here, we got rid of it. So here you can see I'm highlighting. There's a little bit of a delay. You can see I can almost make the whole thing kind of look red, some fading right there. So you highlight, you get to see the exact value and the year. It's just showing you the X and Y when you highlight over it, and it turns red. Very nice. Here's the goals. It updates very quickly. And what's happening here is when I change it to matches, it's re-rendering using R, and it's running through this if statement, and it's outputting the chart all over again. So the last part to this is we hit this publish button up here. I've already done this, so let me just jump straight to here. You can also see it from the run app screen, republish. So I don't want to republish it. I've already published it. So we come here and you can see overview of my apps, and I only have one app here, as you could see. But let's go to that app. You could see some interesting things here, like the metrics of usage. I don't know how there's already April 2nd. Today's April 1st. Oh well. So what you do here, you just click, and anyone can run this. This URL, I can give this to anybody, and they don't have to have R installed on their computer. They can run this URL from as long as they have a compatible browser. So that is all you have to do, and you just give someone this URL, and you could share this app with anyone. You could share apps of this sort of nature with anybody very easily. So I could just email this to you, and you can run it from wherever. So that concludes my tutorial for homework number 2. And thank you for listening.